its applications in physics, chemistry, industry of various kinds, as witnessed by things like the snow in the movie Frozen that Joe Turan of our department has programmed, to virtual surgery, to mathematics of crime, and many, many other remarkable applications. Mathematics is truly a queen of sciences, and it's your hard work and study of mathematics that has laid the foundation, a mathematical foundation, for your future. It's no surprise that mathematics has been named in one of the studies this year as the #1 profession in the United States. Mathematics is a way of thinking, a way of approaching problems. It gives you a set of unique skills that you will carry with you for the rest of your life. You worked hard, and now you've arrived at a very emotional and crucial moment in your life. You're now ready to go out there in the big world and use your hard-earned knowledge and skills. My wish is for all of you to remember what you've learned here at UCLA Mathematics and carry it with you throughout your life. And I wish that you always take your pride in being part of UCLA Math. On behalf of all of us in the department, congratulations to all of you as well as your proud families. And now it gives me a great pleasure to be introducing our commencement speaker, Mr. Steve Girsky. Steve has graduated with a bachelor's degree in mathematics from UCLA in 1984 and went on to receive an M.B.A. from Harvard. He then went on to an illustrious career, which most recently included service as a vice chairman at General Motors. Previously, Steve was president of S.J. Girsky & Company, an independent advisory firm based in New York, where he applied more than 20 years of experience working with senior corporate and board executives, labor leaders, suppliers, and dealers, as well as national and local policymakers. He also served as the lead director of Dana Holdings Corporation. Dave has also served as president of Centerbridge Industrial Partners, a multi-million-dollar investment fund. Prior to Centerbridge, Steve was a special advisor to the chief executive officer and chief financial officer of General Motors. In total, Steve has more than 25 years of automotive experience, including serving as managing director at Morgan Stanley and as senior analyst of the Morgan Stanley Global Automotive and Auto Parts Research Team. And all that started with a degree in math. So Steve, it's a great pleasure to be welcoming you.
Someone once told me the 2 golden rules of being a commencement speaker are keep it brief and tell a story. So I'm going to do just that today, and my talk's going to, if you'll indulge me, for 10 or 12 minutes. I was also told to tell a joke. So I was at dinner with some of the math faculty last night, and I asked them for their best math jokes. And it was quite interesting because most of their jokes were actually longer than my entire commencement address. So my apologies to the faculty. I will pass on the joke today. Anyway, let me start by thanking Dima. Thank you for having me here. It's an honor and a pleasure to be able to speak here today. Congratulations to all the graduates. Congratulations to the families of the graduates. Speaking from experience, I know how proud you must be. I also know how relieved you must be, particularly if your son or daughter has a job. The story I want to tell is about a series of random events that have defined my career. Along the way, I learned about success and failure, flexibility and rigidness, perseverance and vacillation. Most of all, I learned about people and the importance of giving back. I enrolled at UCLA in the fall of 1980. I graduated in 1984. If you were on campus in the fall quarter of 1985 school year, you may have seen me finishing up. Okay, so I was on the 4+ year plan. My parents weren't that happy, but I look at it as a reflection of how much I enjoyed my college experience. Being a math major, I was comfortable with numbers and I wanted to work in the financial markets. I sent out 25 resumes to Wall Street firms, got 3 interviews and 1 offer. I was rejected 24 times, but I kept going. The message here is Failure and rejection are part of life. Don't let it paralyze you. Keep going. I worked for a little more than 2 years as the assistant to the auto analyst at a firm called Payne Weber, which is now UBS. In a nutshell, we would research the auto industry, sift through lots of data, and try to decide if GM, Ford, and Chrysler were good investments or not. I went back to business school, and coming out of business school, the woman whom I worked for said she was going to retire and did I want to take her place. It took her a year longer to retire than she said she would. It would have been easy to get frustrated, but I kept calm and carried on. Life is a marathon, not a sprint. The point being, patience is important. In 2005, after almost 20 years on Wall Street, I wanted to do something different. That was when I took my first adventure into General Motors as special advisor to the CEO and CFO. I tell people that I was like a little rowboat. You row up to a supertanker, you kick it a few times, it doesn't move, and you row home. I learned what worked in big companies and what didn't work. After just under a year, I came home. Remember the message about patience? Well, patience has its limits. After GM round one, I spent a year and a half in the investment business at a private equity firm. One of the projects we worked on was partnering with labor unions to take a company called Dana Corp out of bankruptcy. Dana was a 100-year-old axle company that was run over by the global economy. I had a relationship with the Auto Workers Union from my analyst days and my time at GM. The unions provided concessions, we provided capital. They wanted to work with someone they trusted. In October of 2008, I received a call from the head of the United Auto Workers Union. His name was Ron Gettelfinger. Ron said, I need your help. GM and Chrysler wanted to merge. They had been studying it for months. They wanted the UAW to endorse the merger and agree to a handful of changes in the contract. And oh, by the way, they gave them 5 days to think about it. Ron said, would I help advise them on the situation? He said to me, don't worry, it won't take a lot of your time, and we'll pay you. I told him he didn't need to pay me, we'd call it a favor between friends. The point being, a job is more than about the money. I went under the tent, I spent some time with the GM people, spent some time with the Chrysler people, and I asked 3 questions related to the as yet unreported third quarter results that they were going to get back to me on. It was the night before Election Day in 2008. I was sitting at the kitchen table doing work when I received an email with the answers to my questions. So the first question was, how much cash did they actually use in the third quarter? The answer was $3 billion a month they burned. The second question was, how much cash did they have at the end of the third quarter? The answer was somewhere between $16 and $17 billion. The third question was, how much cash did they have on October 3rd? And October 3rd was important because I knew they paid their suppliers once a month on the second day of the month. So on the third day of the month, the cash balance went way down. So the answer to that question was between $9 and $10 billion. So I picked up the phone, it's 10 o'clock at night, and I called the person in GM's finance staff. I still remember his name was Otto Mystery. I said, Otto, I'm missing something here. You got $9 billion in cash, you're burning $3 billion a month. How are you going to make it to January? He said to me, we have a lot of work to do to get to January. I hung up the phone, I turned to my wife, and I told her to remember this night. She asked why, and I said this was the night we learned GM was going out of business. The next day I flew to Detroit. I went to UAW, the union headquarters, and told Ron Gettelfinger he didn't need to worry about GM and Chrysler getting together because it wasn't going to happen. He had to worry about something much bigger, namely their largest constituency was going broke and they weren't going to make it to January. That brief phone call that led to a short pro bono job got infinitely more complicated. It led to my being appointed to the board of General Motors, the board of directors, which led to my becoming vice chairman of the company. That short pro bono job that wouldn't take a lot of my time and ended up lasting over 5 years. It was extremely challenging, yet very rewarding professionally and personally to help a company not only survive bankruptcy, but to thrive once again. If you add it up, I had at least 7 different jobs since I graduated UCLA, and many more experiences. I did not approach these jobs as if that was what I was going to do for the rest of my life. I took them because I thought they'd be interesting, and I would learn something that would create additional options in the future. Each job provided income and optionality on the next one. This is important because the world where you have the same job doing the same thing your entire career doesn't exist anymore. Many of the job opportunities that will be available 5 years from now haven't even been invented yet. Others will look completely different. Looked at another way, in 1958, the average life of a company in the Standard & Poor's 500 was 65 years. Today, it's 18 years. And I imagine 5 years from now, it'll be even less. Every new job took me out of my comfort zone. Every new job involved taking risk, and in many cases, I tried to do things people were skeptical as to whether they could be accomplished. In late 2012, I was named chairman of GM's money-losing Opel operation, which is the European business. Opel had lost $18 billion over the prior 10 years. They had management problems, labor problems, product problems, dealer problems, and government relations problems. Other than that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln, right? When it was announced so several months later, it became clear the CEO had to go. When it was announced he was leaving and I was taking his place, I received an email from a friend of mine asking who got the better deal, the person who was being asked to leave or the person who was being asked to take his place. With a lot of hard work from a lot of people, I'm happy to say that the Opel losses are much reduced and the operation is on target to be profitable by mid-decade. The point is, don't let anyone tell you it can't be done. And always remember the famous Wayne Gretzky quote that I missed 100% of the shots I didn't take. Another thing I can't underscore enough is the way you should treat people. People should be treated with respect, whether they are above you or below you on the organizational chart. The reason is, it's the right thing to do, and second, you never know when you're going to run into these people again. As an example, I worked with the United Auto Workers as an analyst on Wall Street, a partner on the Dana deal, an advisor during the bankruptcy, and then sat across the table from them on the first post-bankruptcy labor negotiations. If I was difficult to them the first time around, that would have definitely hurt me dealing with them later in life. The last thing I want to talk about is giving back, and particularly giving back to education. An education is not like other goods or services that get lost or used up. Once you get an education, it can't be taken away. It can be used, but it can't be used up. And when you give one, the same thing is true. We need to make sure the next generation has it better than ours does. When I first graduated from business school in 1989, my wife and I attended a charitable event where this gentleman named Ace Greenberg, who was then chairman of Bear Stearns, got up and he gave $1 million to the charity. And he told the crowd, he said, the more you give, the more you make. So we tried it out. And we started making charitable donations, albeit small, to a number of institutions, including our alma maters. As the economy and the financial markets recovered, Ace's Law, as we called it, seemed to work. We gave more, and we made more. And we thought, how good is this? Then the markets crashed, and we made less. The problem is, while our incomes were less, the needs were greater, so we had to keep going. Another example of giving back was my wife's grandfather, a pharmacist from Cleveland, Ohio. One of the most remarkable things about Grandpa Jerry was that he used to tip people very generously when they did a service for him, whether it was a waiter, a waitress, a taxi driver, or what have you. When I would ask Jerry why he tipped so much, he responded that it was important to spread good feeling among people, and many people don't tip at all, so we need to make up for them. The last example is something I watched in the last 5 years. The city of Detroit went through a terrible period. Anyone who works in downtown Detroit understands the needs are large and they stare you right in the face. Last year, I had the opportunity to meet a 10-year-old boy from inner city Detroit named Joshua Smith. Joshua Smith won an award as a Michigander of the Year. What Joshua Smith did to win that award was set up a lemonade stand. He raised $3,000 selling lemonade to help build a local playground in downtown Detroit. When they asked Joshua Smith when they asked this 10-year-old boy why he did this, he said he heard Detroit was going bankrupt and he wanted to help them out. The point of these examples is that role models come in all shapes and sizes. People who are big or small, old or young, wealthy or of modest means can impact other people's lives. You can become a role model no matter where you are in life, and I encourage you to do so. So that's my story, a series of random events. I've had wins and losses. I've experienced the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. I've had singles, doubles, triples, and home runs, but I also struck out a lot. And remember, if there's one thing I can leave you with, no matter how many times you strike out, don't be afraid to keep swinging. Thank you, everybody, and congratulations.